We'll call the City of Fitchburg Board of Health meeting of Thursday, March 14th, 2014 to order. We have a fairly quick agenda today, it looks like, but anyone who wishes to speak today, I would just ask that you stand at the podium and speak into the microphone. It just makes it easier to hear. The acoustics aren't the best in this room. And then state your name and the community in which you reside. You're allowed to speak on items appearing on the agenda for no more than 2 minutes, although we make exceptions for that. And then please state the petition, order, ordinance, or resolution number to which you refer. The first item on the agenda has to do with the, should we take them in order, by the way, Steve?
Yes.
Waste, yeah. The Fitchburg Westminster sanitary landfill situation. I understand that Tom Murray and Mike Kuntz might be represented here to talk to us about that. And it has to do with odors that are apparently in the area, and then also additional information on expansion and construction and the various benefits. So shall I just let you go ahead and present what you want to present?
Sure.
All right.
We also have Frank Cipiol. I did. Okay. But I just didn't want to forget you over there.
Although if we do allow, if anyone faints, we allow you to get back up and continue speaking. So don't worry. Go ahead.
Is there a doctor in the room?
So just to introduce myself, I'm Tom Murray. I'm the Senior District Manager responsible for the Fitchburg Westminster landfill. I'm here with Mike Kuntz, who is the project engineer for the landfill, and Frank Sepio, who is the Environmental Protection Manager.
Could I just interrupt you 1 minute? Are your phones working? Or?
Yeah, they're a little breaking up.
I'm just wondering if not getting
not working.
It's on, but it might be the microphone. But
Yeah, try this and then I'll go switch them.
Is there a light supposed to be on here?
that's better. I think they're working as earplugs more than anything. Wait for Steve for 1 minute.
Any better, Dr. B?
Yeah, it's good now. Thanks. Sorry, Tom.
Oh, no problem.
Go ahead.
So, so Steve invited us to come on in. It's been quite a while since we addressed the Board of Health on, really what's going on at the landfill and what's going to, where it's going in the future. So any questions, that's fine. You interrupt us. I'm going to tag team with Mike Kuntz to kind of give an overall outline of where it's going. So I'd like to start with really 4 bullet points. We'll start with the Phase 5 continuation project, which will take the landfill to 2032. Mike can explain that. With that continuation, I'd like to just kind of go over the benefits of the host community agreement that the city of Fitchburg, the town of Westminster, and RCI are engaged in. Then I'd like to talk about odor complaints, the hotline, how it works, the information that we're seeing from the hotline, and then have Mike go through gas management and what we have done to date and what we're continuing to do as the landfill progresses. So with that, I'll give it up to Mike, and we can first talk about the Phase 5 continuation project.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. My name's Mike Kuntz, project engineer for the landfill. I got to pull my notes. Starting with the Phase 5 construction, we began construction in November of 2022. It's a very large construction activity to construct this cell. The 2022 activity through 2023 really was preparatory work. So it was ancillary to the cell construction. It was improving stormwater controls across the site because the site will be, footprint will be increased by 2.5 acres, but also the overall area will be increased. So taking that into account, we updated our stormwater control plan, and with that, our controls were improved through last year. We are processing material on site to construct an MSE wall, which is a mechanically stabilized earth wall, which is a large feature of this cell construction. To do that, and a benefit of the site has been able to mine and crush existing stone that's on site. So we have been able to minimize impact to the surrounding neighborhoods by not having to get import material, which has been a benefit, I think, to the city for traffic. That activity has gone through, will continue through May of this year. 2024, as I stated, it will be continue to crush the stone in preparation for the MSE wall construction. That work will begin this year and is scheduled to be completed this year. Now, that's just the base, basically the footprint or foundation of the cell. The actual cell construction with the geosynthetics and clay and baseliner construction is scheduled to happen next year. So we anticipate to have, end of next year, the cell construction to be completed, to then submit to the DEP our certification report for the construction activities for an application for what they call an ATO, which is authorization to operate. And that should allow us to begin to operate that portion of the landfill in 2026. And with that ATO, that gives us the airspace life to 2032. Any questions on the construction activity?
If you could just refresh our memory in terms of where the landfill sits, is it on both Westminster and Fitchburg property, or is it all in one city or village now?
Good question. So, yeah.
So, through the history, you guys all know, the landfill is in the town of Westminster. It originally began in the late 70s, early 80s as the Fitchburg landfill. So there's 3 phases. Or 3 cells, sections. We're going to continuation on section 3. Section 3 is entirely in Westminster. It's owned. The land is owned by Waste Management. We, as the city, got together with the town. Steve and all of us got together and said, "Hey, the landfill's a good deal." As Section 1 and Section 2 were filling up, so we went and we bought more land, and then we continued the operation, and it's 100% in the city of, or the town of Westminster.
When you say you bought the land, is the land then owned by Waste Management?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they don't pay rent to the cities? Or?
No, really, which we'll get into. The only, the agreement that we have is, so there's a lot of different permits that we have, but as far as the Board of Health goes, we have a site assignment from the town of Westminster Board of Health. Then we have an authorization to operate with the Mass DEP, and then we have what we call as a host community agreement, and that is with the city of Fitchburg and the town of Westminster and RCI Fitchburg. So that's the agreement. There's no operating contract or anything like that. It's purely Waste Management. We own the permit, we own the site assignment, and we own the land.
Right. And one other question, and tell me if I'm asking too many, but
No.
You referred to construction. I'm just curious as to what that involves. In other words, it's not that you just take waste and dump it on the ground somewhere. You have to contain it in some way.
It's a sophisticated system that protects the environment. So through the application process, we just submit the design that's consistent with Mass DEP regs for landfill construction. And in essence, it's a double-lined landfill that sits on top of 18 inches of clay, and then a liner system that has GCL, which is granular clay liner system. It helps self-heal any penetrations in the liner. 60 mil liner system, and these are 2 sets of this system. And then on top of that is a drainage system, a leachate collection system that, as the waste sits within the cell, a full system of pipes to convey leachate that's generated from the waste and is pumped out of the cell and managed through the City of Fitchburg wastewater treatment plant, or agreement with them.
And in terms of what can be put in the landfill, is it more than organic material, or, I mean?
It's a sanitary landfill, so it's all MSW, so it's sanitary waste.
Okay. And is that recyclable in any way in the future, or just deteriorate?
No, so there's through the DEP a full program to mitigate having recyclable material be landfilled. So we pull out tires, mattresses. We have the recycling, the city recycling center that's within the footprint of the landfill, or that complex that's handles recycling materials that we can recycle and not have landfilled. One other unique portion of the landfill is that with the landfill gas that we pull from the waste mass, we have 3 engines that we burn the landfill gas with and generate electricity, and that's sent out to the grid as well. So there's also recycling on the back end with the waste mass with generating electricity.
Is that methane that comes off? Or?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Super. Thanks.
Welcome.
Sorry to interrupt.
Get ready for order.
I'll just go with the host community. Yeah, and anything that goes into the landfill, it's a very strict, Massachusetts DEP is very strict. There's waste ban plans, there's inspections that we have to do. Customers come in with a recyclable item at the landfill. If we can pull it safely, we need to pull it, but every customer gets logged. It goes into a book, and then we have to send reports out, and then we follow up with letters to the customers that are bringing recyclable material in. And then also on the gas and the energy generation, we're pulling enough gas out of there to do between 2,000 and 3,000 homes. And now Massachusetts has considered landfill gas to be green energy. So, the big energy providers or electric energy providers can put that as part of their green portfolio. And so with this continuation, it'll get us to 2032. We have a host community agreement, which I've said, with the city and with the town. It's all one big agreement. The life cycle of that agreement, it started back, well, I don't want to date myself, but 2000, the original, or in the 90s actually, the original host community agreement came out, and that was set to expire in 2017. So that was one of the dates that we were looking at to possibly close the landfill in 2017. But working together with the city and working together with the town, we were able, and Steve was a big part of this, was we were able to come up with a new host community agreement. And it's not what we want to give to the city and what we want to give to the town. It's a business agreement. We all sit around a table, we come up with things, and then we all agree to what the benefits are going to be through this host. And it's a regulatory requirement that if you're a community, you host a landfill, you can you're entitled to a host community agreement. And so through that process, we were able to agree on a host community agreement in 2017, and instead of putting an expiration date on that, we put it for life of site, so we don't have to worry about it again. Everything in there is subject to index, and it gets the dollars go up with the consumer price index. But just to go through some of the things that the city of Fitchburg benefits for having this is, over the last 3 years, there's a cash portion to the host community agreement. Over the last 3 years, we're somewhere around $4.22 million to the city. In 2021, we were $1.63 million in cash. In 22, $1.27, and then 23, $1.32. And why those numbers kind of went down was, as we're getting ready for this expansion, we had to ratchet back our volume to make sure that we could make it till 2026 when this when the expansion is ready. And then I think it's important to say that also that the city of Fitchburg and the town of Westminster is last man standing. As volumes and we use up airspace, the city and the town will be the last people that will be going into that landfill. So we will make sure that there is space for the city and the town as we go forward. Another big thing is free or discounted disposal. So I know a hot topic, the curbside collection of MSW that now E.L. Harvey is doing for the city. That all comes into the landfill, and it comes in at a reduced rate. So we pretty much charge 50% of what the average rate going into the landfill is to the city. So current rate for the city is $45.79, somewhere around there. And so that's, again, about 50% of what the typical gate's coming in. And last year, the city brought in, 11.5 thousand tons. So I think that's approximately $500,000 it saved for the city if you were to take your trash to another third party. We also discount, and we bring in, or the city brings in all their street sweepings and their catch basin cleanings into the landfill. We put that on our compost pad. We mix that with the leave and yard waste that we grind, and we make a compost product for use at the landfill. The single stream is not part of the collection contract. The single stream is a host community, or the curbside recycling is a host community benefit. So Waste Management is still doing the recycling, and then we take that to a third party for the single stream recycling, and that's worth about $1 million annually to pick it up and bring it to where it needs to go and have it recycled. As Mike said, we manage the residential drop-off center. We provide manpower. We provide all the sheds, all the, everything it takes to operate that. The MSW we bring up to the top. And then we also pay for disposal of white goods, methane, propane tanks, tires, waste oil, everything as part of that drop-off we take care of as the host community benefit. We have a household hazardous waste collection, 2 per year. There's $10,000 to $15,000 in that. And then, I don't know if this is a benefit or not, but the city, through the Board of Health, has a scale attendant who runs our cash register for us, and all that is reimbursed back to the city. Mike also mentioned that we have a great relationship with the wastewater treatment facility. They generate sludge, can't recycle sludge. They bring that to the landfill. So through our agreement, we take their sludge, they take our leachate. And if you remember, a portion of the landfill is Fitchburg's landfill. It's capped, it's closed, but it's still generating leachate. So they take, the city's portion, plus they take our portion as a swap. And then what I want to get into next, which this is not part of the host community, but I think it's an important tool that we have for the community now, and Mike will talk about it, but we also have a third-party odor response hotline in which we push people that if they notice odors or want to report them, there's a number that we have posted at the landfill right at the front gate. It's probably posted on, I don't know if it's on your website. And it triggers a whole series of things once that hotline is called. So I'll push that off to Mike, and he can explain exactly how that works. But if you have any other questions on the host community.
Incidentally, I didn't interrupt him, but on your last page is the city benefits to the landfill if you wanted to take a look at.
Yeah, same sheet of music that I was reading off of.
I didn't want to point out that he was plagiarizing.
The third-party hotline, it's a service we value because it allows us to respond very quickly to an odor complaint. If an odor complaint is called in the traditional way, or meaning that it migrates to us maybe a week or 2 weeks later, it doesn't allow us to respond. And at that point, if an odor, it may be something that was already resolved or not. So I guess with that in mind, we really value that service because, again, it allows us to respond pretty quickly to identifying what the offsite odor is. And that's done by the type of smell and the intensity. And we have a third party engineer that we've hired, and they respond to every odor complaint so that it's independent from a waste management personnel going to the offsite complaint location, and makes an independent evaluation of the odor. We've gone through training with with odor consultants to train our staff, as well as a third-party engineer on how to evaluate odors. And through that process, it's helped by us identify odor sources, right? So that can be identified by the type of odor. Is it a sludge odor? Is it a landfill gas odor? Is it a working face odor? All these things tell us information that we need to dial into a potential source. Or is it a non-source from the landfill? Is it an off-site source from another place? All great information for us to respond in a timely manner. In addition to the odor hotline, we also have other measures we do on site. We perform our own daily inspections, and that's across the whole staff. So not only our gas techs, but our equipment operators, the gas plant operator, managers on site. It's see something, say something, right? So if we see we're trained to look for indicators of venting of any gas system that is maybe impaired, so that we can communicate it up through our staff and jump on it and be able to repair it. Because the last thing we want to be is a poor neighbor. You know, we want to be a neighbor that is viewed as an asset to the community and not the reverse. We also perform our own mandatory odor loops within our property. We've got an H2S meters. We have a systematic form that we use to monitor through our own property that helps us see if we're picking up something that is within the property limit but is an odor source, and what is it? Again, back to the type of odor, the intensity, and to zero into what the source is. We also maintain 2 H2S meters at our perimeter fence line so that depending on wind direction, we can monitor what we're getting for any odor offsite odors. Quarterly of the year, we have a third-party engineer that performs a SEM, which is a acronym for surface emission monitoring. So they use an instrument, a prescribed, very detailed prescribed path they have to follow across the full area of the landfill to look for emissions, venting of landfill gas, and based on that, we're able to pick up things maybe we didn't see through our other means, and that's been very helpful. In addition to that, we maintain a 5-year gas plan. So that's a constant 5-year plan that is updated annually, that we look at the full gas system and where we are with the gas, what we call the gas curve. So that'd be the gas we're generating through our system, as well as filling, and how we have to plan on infrastructure through the year so that we're budgeting for it accurately, and we're planning on the upgrades to our system as we go. What we found in 2023 was that precipitation was the driver for the odor. The water in the waste gas really drives the generation of gas. And the annual precipitation in this area is 48.1 inches. Last year, we had 63.8 inches, so a huge swing in what we participated, which did generate a lot of gas. To respond to that, we implemented a pretty aggressive program to push forward a lot of the items that we had already planned to do in that 5-year gas plan, and evaluate the landfill and add to that additional measures we needed to make sure that we were being really proactive on the landfill itself. At the time when people are putting in complaints, I'm sure it doesn't seem like we're responding fast enough because the odor is there and present now, but we were very aggressive in getting contractors on site, and all these things take time to construct. And I'll just list through a lot of the things we did do last year to try to stay ahead of this. We installed 2,200 linear feet of additional vacuum lines, 750 linear feet of additional horizontal gas collectors, 6 new vertical extraction wells. We constructed 5 acres of 40 mil geosynthetic membrane. So that's a impervious plastic liner across 5 acres of the landfill to help mitigate venting of gases and also mitigate stormwater intrusion into the waste mass. Installed a number of dewatering pumps to draw down the liquid and improve the gas collection. Replaced 55 wellheads to upgrade the ability to fine-tune the well collection. Completed in cleaning a main gas header, which gave us the ability to increase the gas vacuum across the overall system. And then we also hired 2 additional gas techs last year to help us with maintaining the system as we went through. I think what we've seen, a lot of these activities were completed through the end of last year, and the system has improved. I can stand by that, and that's not the end. And I guess that's part of the message is that this isn't a reactive system. It's something we plan on. We maintain this 5-year gas plan purposely so that we can budget for it and continue to improve the system as we fill and come across the system. That's what I had for any questions on the odor complaints for construction last year for the gas system.
I'll just, did either of you have a question right off? I'll just say thanks so much for educating us. It's very valuable and really appreciate your coming here to do that. You might have answered one question that went through my mind, and that is methane, I think, contributes a lot to global warming, so it's nice to get it out of the atmosphere, I would think. So there's some sort of pipe that has a vacuum that brings the gas into it? How do you collect that?
So the site in its entirety is evaluated, and through these different controls, I'd mentioned something we did last year, or items we had constructed last year. Some of those are vertical extraction wells. So that'll be a well that is drilled vertically into the waste mass to the depth of the, close to near the liner system. And we've been able to identify the radius of influence for the vertical well. So we'll know that if we advance a vertical well, that we'll have a coverage roughly about 100 linear feet in a circle radius around that well. When we design the system, we'll overlap the influence of those vertical wells so that we're getting redundant and capturing different areas. In addition to that, we use horizontal gas collectors. So what that is basically a well that is not vertical. It's, as the name implies, horizontal, that is laid with across the surface or just subsurface within a couple of feet, and a vacuum is applied to that, and that'll cover an area. Maybe what we've seen is that within this radius influence of the vertical wells, there may be additional control that needs to be put in place, and we'll do that with these horizontal collectors. With this network of wells, all our vacuum is applied to that from control devices which we have by our power plant. So we have both an enclosed flare and an open tip flare, as well as the 3 engines that will, with the vacuum, manage the methane that is pulled from the waste mass. We use the 3 engines at their capacity, and then based on weather conditions, we see there'll be fluctuations on high and low pressure fronts with the generation of gas that will utilize either the open or closed flare based on their design. But essentially, all gas that is pulled through our gas conveyance and collection system is managed through a control device that burns it.
And then when you get the gas, is it somehow converted to a liquid form or how do you generate energy from that?
It stays as a gas. So it goes through a number of devices to remove condensation from the gas, and we also have filter medium that will remove hydrogen sulfide, and it's reciprocating cat engines, so picture like a big diesel engine, and the methane gas uses the fuel, so mixed with the air is the.
And then does Waste Management sell that energy to the city, or what happens with, you said it's enough?
We have a power agreement with a Vermont company who just puts it out to the grid through National Grid's infrastructure. And out it goes. And I think the important thing, too, is when Mike was talking about the control systems, just recently, within a few years, we added the enclosed flare. And so we used to have the power plant, and we would have the candlestick flare, which is just like a big Bunsen burner. But as our gas production came up by adding this enclosed flare, should the power plant have a major failure, because that's where we want all the gas to go. We might as well make power out of it. But should that have a failure, this enclosed flare can take the entire quantity of gas and control it. So we have duplicating systems now.
Gotcha. And I just hypothetically, I think if we didn't have the landfill, sounds like we'd have some trouble around here, what we would do with everything. So thanks a lot.
But again, I'd just like to open it up to anybody who wants to take a tour. Just reach out through Steve. We'll take you up through the landfill, show you everything we just talked about. And with that, we're done.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Any other?
When you say you have an enclosed flare, does that mean it's like inside of something?
Yeah, so the open tip flare looks like a big Bunsen burner that you would have had in science class, so you can see the flame that's way at the top. An enclosed flare is, I mean, you can explain it, how exactly how big it is, the diameter.
It's like, say, 25-foot radius and 40 feet high.
Wow.
And the combustion happens within the enclosure. So it's like a solid tube, metal tube. It's just a different way of burning the landfill gas.
But it's still an open to the environment. When you say enclosed, you don't mean it's like inside of something.
Yes, but
You don't see the flame. It's inside of a big cylindrical structure. And then before that, the gas is about 50% methane, which we talked about. And then there's that aspect of the hydrogen sulfide that we talked about. And that's usually the sulfur, the at very, very, very parts per billion is, you can detect that. And so that's what, we have a scrubber system that we also have for both the enclosed flare, and we have it for the gas plant and the open tip flare, which all the gas comes in, it comes out of the landfill, it goes through that scrubber system, removes the sulfur out of the gas, so you're not putting out hydrogen sulfide, cleans it, and then puts the gas through. Because not only is it an air emission issue, but it's also, it coats and plates the engines, so you want it out of there. So, we do that. And again, that's all under, we have mucho air permits that we have to meet on emissions and how much we can put into the atmosphere. So it's relatively very clean.
So once the gas is burned, the heat goes into the environment? Maybe that's what you're asking?
Yeah, you do have an emission that goes in, and, I don't know, 99.9 something destruction that we have to make sure that we meet. We've done emissions modeling. We've done so much and again, we have permits that we have to meet and demonstrate that we meet all the time.
Well, that was great. Thanks for the education.
Rob?
One quick question, if you don't mind. I don't believe there has been too many odor complaints on the east side, but I know there has been some west side complaints. But do you think that the system is ready if we were, not likely, but would the system be ready if we had another July like last year when we had ridiculous amounts of rain? I think it was June or July.
Well, and that's the thing. It used to be, because the last really rainy weather we had was 2018, and we all lived through that. Right. And then, it came back in 2023. But I think now this is a new normal. So this is how we're operating. And, when he talks about the gas plan, it's a big model. So you can start inputting all this data in there, and it's spitting out what you should do, when you should do it, and also telling us the capital that we're going to need to spend. So, I mean, that's kind of the new normal that we're operating under. And the system that's there now is going to be a bigger system in a couple of months, and it's going to be a bigger system. And then also this model, which Mike touched on, that just because it says in year 1 you're going to do this, year 2 you're going to do this, year 3, we were able to take year 2 and take year 3 money and bring it in, and whatever we could add, because, you know, and then, also another misnomer is, you know, people say that, all right, you're putting a vacuum on the landfill, just if you're getting odors and you're getting emissions, crank it. Well, you can't crank it because there's a fine balance to that, because if you pull it too hard, I mean, now you're starting to introduce oxygen into a mass that's does not want oxygen, because that could promote you know, combustion. So, you know, that's what our gas techs are fine tuning these. I think we have 250 different wellheads on the landfill that these guys are touching weekly to make sure that, you know, if there's a good producing well, we know it. Can we crank it? But, you know, we have to watch very careful the science behind it.
One last thing. How many individuals does it take to maintain that or to run the landfill?
Well, it takes a lot. So we have 6 operators. So those are the guys that just take care of the trash. We have 2 gas techs. We have the engine plant manager. Then we have engineers, Mike. We have myself, senior district manager. We have EP. We have all the support staff. So it's excess of 20.
Well, thanks.
No problem. And a whole lot of equipment.
And a whole lot of equipment.
Well, again, thanks for the education. It's very valuable. It's nice for us to have an understanding of what goes on there, and sounds like we're pretty good till 2034 anyway. And
Yeah, well, you know, and it's 32 is what
32,
you know what we're looking at
32.
With operational excellence. We could probably get it to stretch a little bit farther, because, you know, that's all based on compaction. You know, we're selling air, so, you know, the better we can compact it, the better. And, you know, we'll just keep going. But yeah, and, you know, I just want to thank, you know, Steve and the board that, you know, we've had a great relationship over, you know, 20 plus years of working together. So, you know, I appreciate it.
thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks. You didn't have to say anything. You were lucky. You answered everything. All right. Well, I think we can then move on to. Go ahead.
Did you want to say anything, or?
Or were they related?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's
No, I
a small
didn't
enough
know.
group that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if Andrew had to go first, but my name is Kim Goodwin. I live up in Oak Ridge Condominium Complex. My wife and I have lived in West Fitchburg, most of her life, myself there since 1982. So we are very familiar with all the different smells coming and going out of West Fitchburg. In the last 3 to 4 years, we're smelling a new, very offensive odor. We've been talking with our neighbors in the development, people on, there's a site called Nextdoor that is constantly seeing complaints about this new offensive smell. It rotates between a sewage smell and raw egg smell. I specifically have been placing complaints on the ClickFix site since June 29th of 2022. There seems to have been little or no response from the city as a whole as to what is this, what's the source, and what can be done to resolve it. We have a couple of different responses from the city that says that this is generated by, and I don't know how to pronounce the word, it's either Greff, whatever the cardboard recycling company is in West Fitchburg. And 2 or 3 times, because I've got a series of emails back and forth with the city and different employees that were responding to the click fixes, it seems like there's a general acknowledgement that this is an issue coming from Grief. We had a meeting last month with Andrew Kuchar. Steve Curry was there, and we had, at that point, tentatively set up a meeting for the next West Fitchburg, Ward 3 meeting that GREF, again, sometime we got to get a proper designation on how to say that, but they were invited to come to the West Fitchburg meeting to address that, and they have, should we use the word declined or refused? Refused. They have refused to come to a public meeting on the situation. We talk about this within the condo development on a fairly regular basis. If the smell is going to be there, it usually starts late in the day and sometimes goes right overnight. And especially in good weather, when you have your windows open, we can't keep the windows open because it gags you. So there is something in West Fitchburg extremely offensive, not even to speak about what could be contained in whatever this odor is. You know, from West Fitchburg, there was just a settlement for class action on odors from the landfill through 2017, I think is when it started, the settlement, I mean. So I think, there are smells up there. I think the landfill, I don't believe that this new odor is related to the landfill, but it's something new, and it's been going on at least 3 years, if not 4 years. Some days it's worse than others. Some days it's totally dependent on which way the wind's blowing, but it's very prevalent. Matter of fact, I want to back up. The night that I came to City Hall, Andrew Kuchar had put in a petition to deal with this. The night we drove home, we went across Franklin Road, and when we hit Rheingold School, I mean, literally at the end of the driveway at Rheingold School, it was like we walked into a wall of this odor. And it was probably one of the most offensive, strong times that we've smelled it. And it was very present all the way till Mountain Laurel Lane, which is where we live. So it's not every night, but it's to a point where it's an annoyance. We're very concerned about what is in the smell that we're smelling constantly. And this is a very vocal comment or a discussion in West Fitchburg. Like I said, we're on Oak Ridge condos, but people on the other side of Westminster Hill Road smell it occasionally. All depends on where the wind is blowing from. But we think it's unreasonable that we have to continue to smell this. We do believe it's a quality of life issue, because like I said, some nights when it's bad, we can't keep the windows open because it literally gags you.
And just on average, how often does this occur? Is it once a week or 5 times a week?
I would say it's multiple times per week. Maybe the season has something to do with it. I don't know. We don't know if it has something to do with, and let's not totally point the finger, but what kind of processes are being done on that particular day. We don't know if sludge is being dumped. We don't know what it is, and that's what we're trying to find out. I think Steve did mention to us on that last meeting that we had that the company did install sulfur filters, I think you said 5 or 6 years ago, detectors or sensors to detect sulfur.
Hydrogen sulfur, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, very specifically, I mean, you can smell some nights, it smells like a sulfurous odor. Then there's other night, it just smells like raw sewage.
Well, neither of those is very pleasant, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're not very pleasant at all.
Well, I'm going to have to defer to someone who, this is the first I've learned of this personally. It seems to me that place to start would be to find out where the odor is coming from.
Right. We don't have those kind of resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that would seem to be the place to start, and once it's determined where it's coming from, do something about it.
Right. I think it would be not unreasonable to turn around and try to legally force what we suspect is the source, Griff Company, that they have to come and respond to the city. Because there is something up there that is creating this, and we don't think that they should be able to hide behind, we're not going to go.
This may sound very simple. I'm just asking, I mean, what if a person were just to drive by Griff and drive by the...
Oh, I mean, and it's very well known. I mean, the night of the city council meeting, we sat at the end, right over in there, and Andrew Van Hazinger spoke to us, and we said, oh, we're here for the odor petition. And he goes, oh, the one in West Fitchburg? Oh, yeah. He says, you come down Route 2A, you turn and head towards the sewage plant or the wastewater plant. It's like, he says, you're driving into something. And it's like, it's very well known in West Fitchburg.
But that sounds a little bit vague to me in that, I mean, if you go and park next to Griff, is the odor there? Or is it,
Depends, oh yeah, I mean, if you're driving along, was it Princeton Road?
Yep.
Yeah, by the wastewater plant, anywhere in that corner by the wastewater plant, you can park your car and smell it when it's there. It's not there 365 days a year, but it's very prevalent.
but it's hard to tell where it's coming from once you're there.
At that point, yes, it is. It's hard to tell. We do know that there has been some, I'll say, correlation between altitude. We know that, when we're at our house, we can smell it, and we've had family members that live down on Franklin Road, which is 100 feet lower than us, and they can't smell it. So it's very affected by the wind and altitude.
Okay. Well, thanks very much. And it seems to me, as I said, the place to start would be to try to determine what the source of it is. And I don't know if anyone else can shed light on how we might go about that and try to help.
Well, that's why we're here, to try to say, okay, we need some help here. There is something not right in West Fitchburg, and the company basically, I'm just going to paraphrase, doesn't want to really talk about it. Mm-hmm. If they can prove that it's not coming from them, great, then we move on. But they're refusing to respond to it.
It does sound as if the landfill has lots of things that they're doing to mitigate odors, so I suppose just from what I'm hearing, I'm kind of thinking it's not their.
My personal opinion is not the landfill.
Yeah. That's
my opinion.
So it would seem other sources might be Griff or with the
Yeah, that's the only thing we can think of. We do know there's a specific pot smell, but that's very localized to Ethos. When you drive by there, you drive slowly. But that's very localized right to the factory. And once you're past 5th Mass Turnpike where it comes out into Princeton Road, you don't smell it. So we know what that is, but this is something different. And when it's there, it's very offensive and very aggravating.
Someone, thanks, and we'll
My name is
figure
Jill
this out.
Goodwin.
She's with me.
Yes, and I'm with Kim. I have a question.
You have the same last name, so I hope so.
Yes, I have a question. Is this the first time that the board has heard of this odor with Griff?
It's the first time, yes, I think it is, first time.
Okay.
I have to say, as a resident of the city of Fitchburg for all my life, that disturbs me because we have years of history of Click Fix. The former mayor and his office, along with Board of Health, I can name the gentleman in the Board of Health, for the last 2 or 3 years, we have contacted and tried to deal with this. So for me to hear that this is your first time in hearing about what we're living with, and we have been told we live in the smelliest neighborhood in the city, that bothers me. And I feel as though that's why we're here. When I finally saw this on the agenda, I couldn't believe it. I do thank Andrew Kuchar for starting to help us get through this. But this is greatly affecting a lot of us up there. And I do feel it's a travesty that this is the first time you're hearing this, so I'm glad it's being opened up.
Well, thank you for pointing it out. I'm sorry that I can only hear what I hear.
No, and I agree. There must be, I don't know why this hasn't been brought up sooner to the Board of Health Board,
Yep.
so.
I mean, I have a record here of 10 submissions to ClickFix that I have made since June 29th of 22.
Well, I don't know if Mr. Kuchar has something he wants to add.
Okay, we yield the floor to Mr. Kuchar.
Yeah.
I first want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Goodwin in regards to their appreciation for me bringing this forward. I have a terrible sense of smell from the years of working at a paper mill while I was in college. So, when I heard these complaints, I went to try to investigate it. The nose doesn't really work too well. So, but there is definitely, I can, even me with my bad sense of smell, can definitely see an issue here. And Mr. Goodwin was right. It is a sulfur raw sewage smell, and I know with the Griff or Grief, I know they're causing me a lot of grief.
Yeah.
And also the wastewater treatment plant. One of those two is the problem, and it really needs to be affected. My constituents are being affected. I came to learn about this little more than a year ago when I was approached by the Goodwins. A little less than a year ago, actually, when I was approached by the Goodwins in regards to this issue. I had seen complaints on Facebook about the smell, automatically thinking and being told by other city officials that it was from the wastewater treatment plant, but upon further investigation, we don't think it is. We think it's Grief paper or the wastewater treatment plant. So something definitely needs to be done about this. We need to, put some sort of investigation together, which is why I submitted the petition to put it in front of you today, so we can get this addressed and try to make West Fitchburg not one of the smelliest in Fitchburg. So I do appreciate your time, and I'd like to see and I'm insulted that Grief won't come here to address my constituents. I invited them to the Ward 3 meeting, and they flatly refused. I think the Board of Health should, order them to come here, either by subpoena or whatever you can do. Because if they ignore the Board of Health, I will be taking steps to get them in front of City Council, because this has to be addressed immediately. Thank you.
Again, thank you, and again, my apologies for not knowing about this, but I think we can give you our word that we'll look into it and do our best to try to decide where the odor is coming from. Not only, I'm sure, is it unpleasant to be dealing with it a few times a week, but it might even affect property values in that area, I suppose, if that's what happens there. So I think, we should look into some way to decide where it's coming from, and a good place to start might be by not only asking but insisting that Grief come and tell us a little bit about their operation, and maybe even let us tour it to see what it smells like there.
If you do get an invite, I would like to be in attendance at whatever the site exam would be.
Absolutely. So I can comment on all of this if that's acceptable.
Right.
So the health department is very aware of the odors, and we are appreciative of the landfill setting up the hotline. About 3 or 4 years ago, the odors, the occasional odors from the landfill and then the occasional odors from the Grief, both had a sulfur smell. It was very difficult to distinguish the two. They were very similar. About 3 or 4 years ago, Grief switched over their treatment system. That's about the time when things started getting worse rather than better. I meet with Grief on a monthly basis. I have invited them to this meeting. I have invited them to the Ward 3 meeting. They weren't interested in doing that. They would prefer to work through me. I've also taken them to housing court several times. We have forced them to draw up an odor control plan. It's been about 10 years ago. They are working to switch their system once again. Unfortunately, they are going to a system where they're going to install 2 batch reactors, which is 2 large swimming pools where they can treat the system. They are currently seeking a permit from the wastewater department and DEP to make this switch. They estimate that the switch would probably take about 3 to 4 months. But my thoughts are that this system might be slightly better than the one that is creating the odors than now. But we're probably going to experience when there's poor maintenance or system shutdown, aeration systems, we may go back to the sulfur odor again. They have installed hydrogen sulfide meters around the property. And incidentally, I might add, and I appreciate Councilor Kuchar mentioning that they're desensitized. They do not smell it. And it's absolutely true that you become desensitized to the odor. In addition, our West wastewater treatment plant, as you know, is very underused. Grief is the only facility that submits waste to the West treatment plant. So when the discharge from Grief has an odor, it's almost exacerbated by the wastewater treatment plant because they have the same large tanks out in the open. So it definitely helps the odor carry. And you folks are due east, so the prevailing winds are in that area. Direct those, when the odors happen, direct them right at you. Yep. Yeah, and we certainly
Steve, what does Grief, what do they manufacture? What do they do?
Cardboard. They take waste paper and turn it into a pulp, which is a very, Councilor Kuchar can comment on that, as it creates a lot of odors through the process. Oh. They also have aerators in their tanks. The aerators were breaking down on a regular basis about 2 to 3 years ago. That problem has gone away, but with their switch to this new system, the short-term fix, the aerators will be back involved in the treatment system.
And just out of curiosity, let's assume that it is Grief that's doing this. That's where the problem's coming from. Is there a law that says you can't create odors in the environment?
Absolutely.
There is, okay.
Yeah, we've considered a few times to ask them to stop operating. That's how serious the odors have. We're not looking to put people out of work, but as the Goodwins pointed out, it's unbearable at times. Long term, they have hired 2 engineers firms. They have one set of plans submitted for a new treatment operation. Even the wastewater folks weren't quite sure that is going to take care of the problem, which scared Grief into spending upwards of $3 million on this construction project. So they've hired a second engineering firm, and those plans should be out. I was told March. Those plans should be out shortly. That's more of a long-term fix between permitting and materials and construction. They estimated that would take up to 15 months to install. So they're looking at a short-term system, which is 1 to 3 months, and a long-term system, which is a year and a half.
Would we be able to request that Grief comes here and outlines for us what their plans are to mitigate the odors that are coming from their plant?
I think it would be a terrific terrific idea that the board actually order them to do a number of things, which is including educating the community on and I've been after them for 3 to 4 years now, and tried it in court a few years ago, and with mediation that the hotline works terrific with the landfill. It puts a third party involved. It's not me. It puts a third party involved. They actually investigate the site. Grief actually thinks that I'm calling the Goodwins, telling them to complain about Grief, and it's not anything like that.
I know you complain
The
about me,
hotline
but
would be an ideal thing, and then I don't think it would be a bad thing for the board to order such a thing.
I would favor that myself.
Can I add something to this? You mentioned a minute ago about they were installing new sensors. Would it be,
Hydrogen sensors are already there.
okay, would it be possible to get some kind of sensors that we could put up in the area of Oak Ridge? And if and when this smell presents itself, it would be detected and maybe some kind of analyzation takes place.
What do you guys think? Would that even be worthwhile? I know it's out of your, just on the engineering side. I mean,
Well, I mean, there has to be some kind of an air quality system that can, like if somebody gets a hazardous chemical spill, it should be able to be detected as to what it might be.
I mean, I think we could talk to what we have at our fence line.
We maintain 2 H2S meters at our fence line. They detect hydrogen sulfide down to parts per billion.
Okay.
We were talking about hazardous conditions.
Mike, can you come up and if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'll sit
Sorry, I
back
don't-
down. I was thinking that would be.
There's 2 here, too. Sorry.
I analyze what it is.
The H2S meters we maintain at the perimeter monitor hydrogen sulfide down to parts per billion. They will take a reading once every 10 minutes because they have to, for the meter to work, it has to purge ambient air through the meter, and then it's a 3-minute cycle to actually take a physical sample. So you're getting a reading once every 10 minutes of what the level of H2S is in the meter. Through our work with our odor mitigation and process through the whole process, one of the things that was made very clear is that a lot of the odors that you smell, your nose can detect odors, down to parts per trillion, and it's very specific to the constituent that will drive the odor, right? So, for example, you may have a contaminant in the air that you can't smell that's at parts per million, but yet your nose will pick up a hydrocarbon at parts per billion, right, or hydrogen sulfide. For our site, I can speak to it has been a tool to understand the levels of H2S, if they're there, and so that's what we stick about at the perimeter. As far as being a resident, it may be helpful to understand if is there a hazardous level of H2S and there. But I guess not knowing what their manufacturing process and what what's going on there,
right,
and levels. We've smelled hydrogen sulfide and had a meter that shows 2 ppb of hydrogen sulfide, and so what does that mean? That means that you're going to smell something that is an annoyance to you, to quality of life because of being able to smell that issue, but that doesn't correlate to a hazardous condition when it comes to the levels in the air. So there's been I guess I don't know if I'm helping other than his statement was having had it as residential area. There's a lot of support that meter means. You're not just setting that up and then it's not remote. It's physically downloading that data. We physically read them and hold the meters so that we can manually record the readings. A remote sensor, that's going to take something that has some digital mechanism to be able to, have a cellular connection to remotely understand what's going on with that. I mean, it depends on how far you want to go with this, right? So
right.
There's I guess where I was, there's a lot of details to these, other than just saying place a meter in a position. It's interpreting what the data means. It's maintaining it with batteries. It's logging that information, and so there's a lot to that process other than just installing a meter. It's not I don't see that as sort of as a quick fix, other than it is a tool to a larger plan sometimes.
Just going back to the culprit a little bit, how often do you yourselves detect those sorts of odors at the landfill? Is that, I mean, it sounds like.
So, we do our loops, like I said, internal loops. So what does that do? That takes us to different portions of the landfill. So on a typical route, we will, depending on wind direction and the rest, we'll have the meter that we'll have it take a reading, and then we take our personal readings of odor. And if we're on a downwind location, if you get in, so our system is pretty prescribed, right? So we'll go to each of the Westminster and Fitchburg drop-off areas or cycling areas. We'll go to different locations that are basically compass points along the perimeter of the landfill footprint itself. And a typical route during landfill operations, if you're downwind of where we're actively filling, you'll get light odors, right? And so with that light odor, majority of the time we'll have non-detects on the H2S meter. And so that goes back to what I was saying before, where sometimes what you smell may not register on what the meters can pick up.
Yeah. What I'm getting at, I think, is it doesn't sound as if 5 times a week you're having overwhelming odors at the landfill that would.
Oh, understood. Yep.
That would go off to the environment that others might appreciate. Is what I'm saying.
Right.
It's not that you're, oh my God, not another day like this there. So it seems to me that what we need to do is have Grief come and tell us a little bit about what they do, how they do it, and what they're doing to mitigate the odors that are apparently coming from there, and at least start there and see if we can't be helpful to them in terms of controlling that and in turn making the environment better.
Any idea what one of those monitoring devices cost? I mean, are we talking $100,000 or $1,000?
On the order of like 7,000.
7,000?
But I think the important part on this is not knowing what Grief's process or anything like that. We're not the Einsteins behind this. We brought in some heavy experts to guide us to do this and to bring us to where we put the monitors, what kind of monitors we're going to use, all that. It didn't come out of
But the third party, sorry, Doctor. The third party does use some instruments on the testing when there is odor complaints.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a monitor would only, though, tell you that the odor's there, which probably you can tell anyway, and but it doesn't tell you where it's coming from.
Well, no, I think if you took a test close to the facility and then in certain areas, especially where the complaint is coming from, depending on what we're testing for, I think you could, it would be helpful in determining.
And I think that's the important thing of our odor loop that we do, because, sometimes you're going to get a very strong gas odor, and, you're going to target back to find it, and, you'll see a wellhead that popped off, something that you can fix, right? So you're doing a loop, you're just not documenting, I smell, you're documenting, but you're also looking for something.
Right. No, I agree. If you're close to the facility and it's showing up, then you know. But if he has it as condominium and it doesn't really tell you where it's coming from, it just tells you that there's a problem. So we're not that far ahead in terms of knowing where it's coming from and how to deal with the problem. So I think we need to, even if it's by process of elimination, ask Grief to come and tell us a little bit about their.
I have invited them to this meeting. They were concerned about the recording.
I have
So I think,
a couple ideas.
okay.
Well, first, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I'm sorry this is the first we're hearing about it. I live near a Weetabix bakery, and it smelled great. It smelled like baking cookies, but even something that smells good, you don't want to smell all the time. You don't want to smell anything that you're not burning a candle or making it yourself. So I understand what that feels like. West Fitchburg's always had a bit of an odor to it, and you don't want to add to that.
This one is definitely new 3 or 4 years ago, and it's
Yeah.
like
If I just won't, if I could remind folks, we're killing the FATV gentleman. Please come to a microphone if you got something to say.
Yes, I mean, yeah, we've always had smells. This one is very distinct, and when it's there, it's like you're driving into a wall of it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Wachusett Potato Chip. If you drive down Water Street when they're cooking,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
West Fitchburg, it's not so great.
Not so great, no.
Yeah, so I appreciate your
And
comment.
I want to know so that they have do they have an odor plan now?
Yes.
So they've been permitted, they have permits for this. Who's in charge of those permits, the DEP?
DEP, yep.
Can the DEP come and do a site assessment?
And they have, yes.
And they don't?
But they rely on our enforcement.
Okay. But they've not been able to determine that
So when I discuss issues with grief, and I have some ideas, I do run it by DEP, air pollution, and they help me with the enforcement end of it. So, I mean,
Well, it
they're not
seems like-
completely out of the picture, but
It seems like now we can't necessarily go up to them and accuse them of it, because right now they're just suspected to be the culprits of this. We don't really know who's doing it. I'd be careful about that. But it sounds like maybe the third-party samplers that they use could come in and determine where this odor is coming from. And then we'll know at least where it's coming from, and then we can take steps from there. But it seems like the DEP, who would hold their licenses for these things and who's going to be giving them a new license, should be in the loop on this. So
agreed.
if we invite them here, we should probably invite DEP here too. They probably won't be happy about that. But if we were to find that they're responsible for it, then they'll need to come in. And I think we should have the DEP here, who has, I know they rely on us for enforcement, but they should know about this and know what's going on. I know you talk to them, but to be here.
the local permits are the wastewater treatment plant. So having participation from wastewater would be a great thing, too. Incidentally, wastewater commissioner does attend the meetings with me monthly
Okay.
with grief.
All right. Yeah, something has to be done quick, because it's going to get hotter and it's not going to be good.
So how should we move forward from here, then? Whom should we request to come, and when should we do it?
So do you want a written order to be prepared, and if we could just start ordering the issues now, or we could just order them to appear at the next meeting and then make some decisions on what that order could look like? And whatever your folks are comfortable with. Does
Well, I
that make
agree.
sense?
Go ahead.
I think being that they're just suspects right now, I know.
I think they're admitting that there needs to be change. They're resistant to it because it's
I
going
have
to
no
cost them
problem-
millions
I have
of
no
dollars,
problem
but
bringing
they,
them in
yeah.
to talk to them and have them discuss the process with us and let us know what's going on, and let us know if they have any remediation in mind.
Would
And then
it-
go from there.
Would it be beneficial to have a tour first?
If they'll
'Cause I
allow
know
us, I would do that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would be helpful.
And I think if grief were to come, I agree with Ian. I think having the DEP represented as well, I think would be helpful.
That could be
Way to-
great, sure.
Way to get started on trying to find a solution for this.
So I will request a tour in lieu of an order at this time?
All right?
Tour and an attendance at the meeting?
I think that would be a good place to start, just so we see what the facility's like. My wife has a great nose for smell. I'll have her come. But anyway, I think a tour would be great, and then I think shortly thereafter to get grief and a DEP representative to come to a meeting and see if we can't decide for certain where the odor's coming from and what we might do to get rid of it.
I think we're going to find that we may have to order them to appear.
Maybe we should just do that.
I recommend it.
We should just do that instead of doing the whole tour first. And I mean, we could ask them about the tour, but
Yeah.
more importantly, they should be here. That's even more important than the tour, I think. So I think order them to come next month to our next meeting would be appropriate.
I think it is, yes.
Yep.
Okay,
So I guess I can make a motion.
that's a great idea.
I'll make a motion that we order Grief to come to our next meeting and discuss their operations and process.
I'll second it.
Definitely. And I wonder what happens if, you said there's resistance. There's been resistance already. They're resistant.
The resistance to speaking to the community.
Well, they are part of the community. So.
Yes, I agree. They want to funnel their information through me. They say I do a fine job of transferring the information. But obviously that doesn't work.
Apparently not.
Okay, so I will put that in a written order and send it to the grief officials.
All right.
It's a start.
Do the Goodwins have any additional comments, or Councilor Kuchar?
Excuse me, I'm sorry?
Any additional comments, or?
No, but I would like to say thank you for ordering grief paper to come, and I will be here at the next Board of Health meeting. According to the website, it says you're the first Thursday of the month?
Yes, we usually meet on the first Thursday.
Okay.
I won't be available, I don't believe, but you folks are welcome to carry on without me. Or we can move it more to the middle of the month if that's acceptable. But we can talk about the next meeting date.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I think since you've met with Grief and spoken to them regularly, it would be nice to have you here, I think, personally.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for bringing that all up and informing us. As far as the hearings go, then I think the tobacco hearing has been postponed.
Yep.
And we should then move on to the food establishment permit hearings. I think there are now just 2 establishments whose permits have expired as of December 31st of 2023, those being Mill City Pub and the British American Club.
So Inspector Tantanarowat is with us, and he will inform us of anything that has happened since I haven't been in the office for a couple of hours, so things may have changed. But
Hello, Board. As of March 12th, Mill City Pub has submitted their application, but it is not complete. They're missing a required certification that operation needs, and no payment has been received. There was communication stating that they would submit the required certification 2 days ago on the 12th. No follow-up has been made. British American Club, there has been no communication back and forth. I do have their last 2 inspections, the original inspection and then the reinspection. The reinspection came back incomplete. There were still violations to the inspection or to the operation. So my request would be that they should not be operating under the Federal Food Code or the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, FFDCA. It defines simply as articles used for food and drink, which is under Article 21 U.S.C., Chapter 321, defining all alcoholic beverages that fall under the FDA's regulation jurisdiction are legally considered foods. I do believe they also host for catering events. They should not be doing that as well. And then at the bar, anything that's considered a garnish or ice is considered edible and should be removed.
You're talking now about the British American Club exclusively?
Well, technically both.
Both.
But yes, British American Club, who has not submitted anything, should be ordered a cease and desist.
Just for, go ahead.
Councilor
Oh, I'm sorry.
Have information regarding the BAC.
Thank you very much. I was a representative of the British American Club. I saw this on the agenda. That's why I stayed to get this addressed. We thought we had all of our inspections completed, and that's why we were able to get our liquor license. We had a little bit of a delay in regards to the building inspection because we had some issues with our emergency lighting that took some time to get the parts that we needed. But we were issued our liquor license, so I thought everything was okay. We're more than willing to work with the board and with you to get any issues addressed and make sure everything's all set. If you give me the list of what the issues are, I will address it with the new president. I was the former president, and we'll work with the city in order to be able to continue operation and work with you to make sure everything gets done properly.
I do believe the operation was sent a letter from me, actually 2 letters from me, a letter from the director of the Board of Health, and then a legal letter from...
When were these letters?
My letters were sent out in December and in January, January and February. I can't speak for the director when he sent out his letter, but I know the city lawyer or solicitor sent it out 2 weeks ago, and then there was a follow-up call made last week.
I spoke with Donna Pollock.
Donna, yes.
And she contacted me directly because we have a relationship outside of the city in regards to both being lawyers. And she asked me, is everything all set? And exactly what I told the board, that we got our liquor license. We thought we were all set with everything that needed to be done. We didn't know there was still couple of things left. Yeah. So we're more than happy to get things taken care of and get this addressed and get compliance.
The licensing commission was notified last week as well.
Okay.
So they should have been in contact as well.
We haven't heard anything.
Okay.
So it isn't a question of not paying for the permit, it's just that there are certain things within the inspection that need to be corrected, is that it?
Well, there's also the requirement of a renewal permit, which requires them to have updated food protection manager certification, which based on their last inspection report was expired. They're also required to have a person in charge be allergy awareness certified.
We have that.
Perfect. And then there's also a requirement for CPR certification and workers' insurance, things that they already have.
We have that as well.
I need to have it on file for any auditing reasons.
Could we ask Mr. Kuchar then to contact the president of the British American Club and just
absolutely
ask that those items that are missing be submitted?
I will speak with the representative, and I will speak with his name is Joe Clonan. I will speak with him in regards to that and make sure everything gets submitted, and whatever needs to be fixed will get fixed.
Perfect. I can give you this list right now.
I didn't know Kuchar was a British name, by the way. I think I'm learning.
Okay.
There's some good compliments on there, or comments as well.
Yeah, I see that. I appreciate it. Okay, we did correct you might want to come down and take a look. Because
yep, so upon the renewal of the renewal of the permit, it does trigger a reinspection for that
okay.
as well.
Okay.
So once we get the renewal, then it triggers for us to come on by.
Okay, no, that's great. We'll get that done, and because many of these things have been taken care of, and I thought you already came for a reinspection. So, all right, well, we'll get that taken care of.
Perfect, easy enough.
So it sounds as if it's mostly a communication problem at this point.
Yeah, because right about the time when the licenses are being renewed, that's when we change up the administration in the club. So when and of course, I left for Florida the week of Christmas, so I wasn't even around for that basically the last week of December. So, and I had the new president sworn in while I was gone. Well, I swore him in before I left in case there was any emergencies like this. So we'll get everything taken care of.
So why don't we just put any recommendations on hold, giving an opportunity to get those things taken care of, and
perfect.
We'll delay any recommendations till next meeting.
Okay.
Hopefully the British American Club will be crossed off the list.
All right, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Works for me.
And again, just going back to Mill City Pub, they need to submit.
So they still have a certification that they owe us. Even a documentation or proof that they've scheduled the course will be acceptable. And then their payment for their renewal is also due.
And where do you stand with letting them know those things?
If there's no submission or communication on the update of their required certification, then I believe a cease and desist order should be issued until at least a follow-up is created.
Mr. Kuchar has been very cooperative in terms of trying to meet all the requirements for the British American Club. It doesn't sound as if you're getting quite the same cooperation through Mill City Pub. Is that correct?
So again, the application was submitted. Their permit expired December 31st. Notification does go out from our OpenGov system, our application system. They also been notified by myself, the director, and the city lawyer, Dara. They submitted their application, again, incomplete on March 12th, 2024, so 2 days ago.
All right. So they've had opportunity but have not corrected things.
Correct.
The idea. Do we then,
If we feel that, considering the same situation for the British American Club, saying that they've been, or they are issued a cease and desist order that would be issued for April 1st, if they can't comply, that's what my suggestion would be, given to the end of the month. They are issued late fees each month that they don't reapply or cooperate.
We could prepare that if you were to order that.
I would make a motion that we order that we order compliance by April 1st, 2024. Otherwise, we'll issue a cease and desist order.
I think that's a good first step.
Second that.
I'm in favor.
Since you're standing there, moving on to the food establishment ticket hearings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't know you were British, though, Mr. Kuchar. Good to know. He's ignoring me. As far as the food establishment ticket hearings, there's just one name on there now, Dutch Kitchen.
Dutch Kitchen Bake Shop as well, yes.
Yeah. And is that because they have gone beyond the permit?
So their violation actually is a different issue. They are permitted, but their ticket that was issued January 19th, 2024 is past the 21-day period of contesting or paying the fine.
What was the ticket for, if I may?
So there were two violations. They were both repeat. I can offer you a copy of the letter as well, but the first citation was for distributing food without a wholesale license from the state of Massachusetts to other operations. And then the second one was for not labeling retail packaged food with the required information provided by the Mass Sanitation Code. That was a third violation, and then the wholesale license was a second.
Okay, so they were told of this, they're issued a fine, essentially.
Yep, so they've actually paid their past fines for the same violation, and then I did print out a copy for each of you, if I may bring this up to you. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what I just gave you is just the outlines of the wholesale requirements from the state of Massachusetts. It does go beyond the city of or Fitchburg's jurisdiction, but they are still required. The communication between the owner and operators of the Dutch Kitchen Bake Shop, it has been consistent and ignored. So there's a few email exchange that I brought in if you were interested to see, stating that I provided them with the link and the application for the mass wholesale license. There's also email of acknowledgement, and then there's also an email after they were reported for selling to selling without the license of a wholesale licensor or permitter across city and in-city license or in operations. Excuse me. They were visited by a state inspector. I have their follow-up report here as well. They did state that that operation of Dutch Kitchen has been working with the wholesale inspectors, but they have not been approved. So they are fully are aware of their requirements. On that document that I gave you, it does highlight that these permits are non-transferable. The previous owners to the Dutch Kitchen, I believe it was transferred over about 2 years ago. They did have a wholesale license, and it's non-transferable. Again, that's something that the current owners were aware of.
So this wholesale license is something they have to apply for and perhaps
Through the
there's a
state.
fee with
Yeah,
it?
but it's an additional one, so just as if you were selling seafood
Yeah.
or selling liquor, you have to get a secondary license.
And it sounds as if you've informed them of this on a number of occasions now and have not really,
Yeah, and then the last time they were issued these citations for both the labeling and distributing without a wholesale license, they did acknowledge it. They paid their fine. There was a vendor in Fitchburg who was purchasing, who was notified of this, and they were told not to purchase from that operation. They still did so, and they were also issued a fine, which they did pay. Also acknowledging that they were aware not to do so.
so do you need from us,
So it's essentially a ticket hearing, so you either revoke it, modify it, or sustain it, uphold it.
So the ticket is for $400. The first violation is typically $50. Repeat violations go up to $100, and then a third violation can't be or cannot exceed $500, according to the Mass City Code.
and this is all with the same owner group?
Correct.
Over the last 2 years?
So we just need a motion to uphold the ticket, if that's what we want to do.
That's all we're looking for.
So the only way to contest it would be to go, your order, or the board's order would be to go to court.
I'll make a motion that we uphold the ticket.
And I'll second it.
Is there a possibility that you would be able to send them a reminder letter or a letter to in order to pay the ticket?
Sure, let's prepare it, and I will get their signatures.
Perfect.
I'll just make, do we need to make a motion for that? I make a motion that we send them an order to comply with this.
And I'll second it.
All right. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Nice work.
Okay. Moving on to the meeting minutes for the meeting of February 15th, 2024. Were there one tiny typographical error, but they were perfect otherwise. There and there. Just I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 15th, 2024.
I'll second.
And
Perfect.
we're all set with that. I think just some
Oh,
announcements.
announcements.
Yeah.
Thank you for the reminder. On Saturday, April 27th, right outside this building from 10 a.m. to noon, which is, this building's located at 700 Main Street, right next to City Hall, we will have our annual, well, actually, we have 2 a year, but a National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day. For those folks, check your medicine cabinets and any unused and unwanted medications. We'd like to get those out of our city and properly disposed of. So on that day, you can drive up and drop off the medications. If you have concerns about the medications having a name on them, you're welcome to black them out or white them out. Black them out with a magic marker would be the best way to do so. But check those areas where you store the drugs from maybe a past surgery, and let's get those properly disposed of so they don't get into the wrong hands.
Or even into the water supply.
Or into the water supply. That is a good point. Other announcement I have, I'm sorry. The Health Department is sponsoring a blood drive in partnership with Mass General Hospital on Friday, June 2nd. The Bloodmobile will be parked right outside this building. from 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. And parking will be available behind the building, as usual, and appointments can be, they're actually required, and they can be made by checking a link. I will refer to the Board of Health website. The link is a little bit confusing, but I just want folks to know that June 2nd from 9:30 to 3, the MGH Bloodmobile will be at the Legislative Building. And if there are questions, you can contact the office, and we can register you if that's a little easier. But we will get this on the website so folks can register right from the link. And that's all I have.
Just one question about your first announcement. The medications that are dropped off, what happens with them? Where do they go after?
So they are disposed, I believe they're incinerated. The police department takes them to a site established by the Drug Enforcement Agency, and the police bring them to this site, which I believe is in Westboro or Westford, I'm not exactly sure, where they are disposed of. So we're not part of that process. We can't handle them. Only a police officer can.
Gotcha. Thanks. Any other comments, questions, arguments, any sort of thing? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
And hearing no objections, I will adjourn.